her love for the ocean comes from 20 years as a scuba diver instructor. This ocean innovator founded in 2004 the Tangaroa Blue Foundation and created what would evolve in the Australian Marine Debris Initiative framework, not only focused on removing the ever-increasing loads of rubbish in our oceans, but most importantly, is finding ways that prevent marine debris from being released in the first place. She was acknowledged in the Ocean Geographic magazine as one of the 18 most influential women in ocean conservation. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Heidi Tait.
Morning, thanks for having me.
Heidi, can you tell us about your organization?
So it started as a really small community initiative actually in Western Australia as well, down in the southwest corner. And we were really surprised at the amount of plastics that we were finding washing up on beaches that were in a national park. And also the wide variety of sources of what we were finding. So, you know, there was local litter stuff that had been left by people there, but we were also finding international source debris from both commercial fisheries and cargo ships that pass really close to the coast down there. And the question originated very, very early on as to, well, why is it here and what needs to change to stop it from occurring again? And we held a big cleanup, a community cleanup event over one day, and we collected a lot of data on what people were finding. And out of that, a workshop got held, and we picked one item that we were able to find a solution to with the support of a commercial fishing body and also the Department of Fisheries in Western Australia. And that really gave us, I guess, proof of concept that citizen science data could be used to facilitate change. The key was getting the right stakeholders together. It meant that now we had a model that we could replicate, and over the next 16 years, we've become national. We now have organisations in other countries also using the methodology in our databases, and it's been able to connect not only citizen scientists and community members, but industry bodies, local businesses, and all levels of government. We know that marine debris is such a complex issue that we need a really comprehensive stakeholder group if we're going to do all the things that need to change to find a solution.
And why did you create AMDI?
So the AMDI was developed because we had little projects in the southwest corner of WA, and then we had other projects happening up in far north Queensland. We had a project happening down in Victoria. And we decided we needed an umbrella program that all of these projects could fit under. So the Australian Marine Debris Initiative became that umbrella program that all organisations and community groups could connect to as a platform. We wanted to make sure that data was being collected in a consistent way. There were so many different data sets and data methodologies that meant database A couldn't speak to database B. So this was about trying to bring all the stakeholder groups onto the same page where data could be housed, collected and used, you know, with the greatest alignment within those methodologies. And so that's why the AMDI got created.
And can you tell us how your actions take shape?
Yeah, it starts by ensuring you have a scalable model. So you want something that can be used by local community groups as well as, you know, on an international platform. We have created a database that helps us identify source. So when you look at the different categories, and there's over 140 categories in the database, those categories were designed to try and help us track that item back to where the actual release point happened. So by training people and providing resources for community members and other partner organisations to understand how those categories get developed and recorded, it means then that we have a database that can be used at all levels of government. It can be used with local community projects. It can help, you know, address items at an international scale. It's about identifying at what scale each of those particular items should be best dealt with. And then you need to find the right stakeholders to bring together for those solutions.
Fantastic. So who are the members of your association?
So we have a framework where we have, as a registered charity, we have a board of directors. We have 7 people that sit on our board. We have my position, which is the CEO. So I run the day-to-day operations. And then we have a team that's based around Australia. And those team members connect with their local communities, whether that's other community groups or individuals, schools, Indigenous ranger teams, local businesses, and all levels of government. And then from there, we have a basis of official members. And then we have AMDI partners, and there's over 1,600 different organisations that have contributed data to the AMDI database. So it's really showing how collectively that we can create something that it's very difficult for one organisation to do on its own. So, you know, technically Tangaroa Blue is just another partner of the AMDI network. We just are coordinating and hosting it for as many collaborative partners as we can.
How can we help you?
That the public needs to make noise. We have something in our wallets called money, and businesses want our money. So we need to consume a little bit more with care. Don't accept what you don't want to buy. Find somewhere else that you can buy that from, and support those businesses that are trying to be innovative and trying to do the right thing, because the more requests that they get, the bigger that they can build, the more impact that they can have. So it's really important that we think where we actually invest our dollars as individuals, as well as you know, who we vote for. Who we, you know, I think it's really important also not to just name and shame. We need to name and fame as well. So let people know when people are doing a good job and not just complaining about a bad job as well. So there's lots of those little things. We need more people out there collecting data and removing, because data is evidence, and we need evidence to push for change. We need to show proof as to why we want things to change. And that's the data. One of the biggest, one of the most important data sets that we're doing at the moment along the East Coast is monitoring the impact of state policies such as plastic bag bans, container refund and deposit schemes. So we want to know whether those policies that were put in place to reduce litter and increase recycling are actually working. And unfortunately, not just at a state level, but at local government levels and national levels as well, a lot of money gets invested in schemes, in strategies and in policies, and there's no monitoring to see the impact that they had. So everybody that gets out there and picks up rubbish from their environment, you know, take that next step, be a citizen scientist, contribute what you pick up in a data format so that we can use that as evidence. I always say that the team out there now that are contributing to the AMDI database are no longer rubbish collectors. They're our marine debris CSI team. And because we have the details and the evidence, you know, we can track to the source and we can push for these changes because we have the proof.
Heidi, what do you think is the worst type of marine plastics which is affecting Australia's oceans?
When we look at the data in the AMDI database, it shows us that there's not just one thing that's the problem thing. When you look at it at a regional scale, they all have different problems. So if you go to the very tip of Cape York, what's washing up on the beach there and impacting the environment is totally different to what you find on a beach in Port Phillip Bay, for example. And so we need to look at solutions around regional scales. I guess the thing that we've found, particularly in those more remote, hard to get to areas, which don't have the capacity with their council cleanups, with community groups, with people just walking every day and picking up a couple of pieces that they see, these really remote areas where it's very challenging to get into, that the plastic that has washed up there just continually fragments. And you know, some of the remote cleanups that we do in Cape York, where we go up and spend a week at a time with a team of volunteers and work with the Indigenous communities and the rangers up there, you know, we can pick up a bottle that it looks intact, and as soon as you put your finger on it, it disintegrates into a gazillion pieces. So once it disintegrates into these smaller and smaller pieces, it's so difficult, expensive, time consuming to remove. And so the challenge is trying to get stuff as quickly as you can, or as close to the source as you can, so that it doesn't fragment and turn into this additional layer of microplastics, which, you know, has massive complexities around its removal. And so I think that that's the problem, is the longevity of plastic, which is why we use it. It's a convenient material, an awesome material. But once it's released in the environment, if it's not collected, the complexities around dealing with it just becomes, you know, 10 times fold.
Mm. And where do you collect the most of the plastics in Australia?
Look, those remote areas are quite shocking, and we've just come back from doing our annual helicopter survey, which surveys the area from Cooktown up to the tip of Cape York. We're flying really low and slow, and we're grading the debris loads, and we have a couple of places that are inaccessible by road or boat that we touch down on, and we do some surveys there. And in some of those areas, we're seeing between 1 and 2 tons of debris per kilometre. And that can be, you know, doubled again after a significant weather event like a cyclone that could move marine plastic from a certain area of the ocean into a new type of trade wind, and all of a sudden we get debris that we normally wouldn't get because it's been shifted around in the water areas. And so those are some of the really high levels. There's areas, offshore islands, we work with the communities on Cocos Keeling Island and Christmas Island, and certain beaches that face a certain direction. When there's wind or seasonal patterns, they can accumulate. You know, we removed a close to 1.5 tonne off a 70-metre beach on Christmas Island. You know, Christmas Island is a stunning, most beautiful island, but you just get these little pockets that just capture ocean debris and plastics. And the closer we get to those rivers that are you know, letting out so much plastic every time the monsoons hit, you know, they're going to continually be impacted by marine plastics for decades and decades to come.
That's pretty scary. And are you able to recycle any of the plastic that you're collecting during a cleanup activity?
Yeah, I mean, closer to urban areas, it's easy. You know, most of the stuff is fairly new. It's not contaminated. It's clean enough to go into your normal recycle systems. You know, beverage containers that were sold in the state can go through their container refund or deposit scheme. So that's actually not too challenging. It's when we get to these remote communities where there is no waste management infrastructure and it's too expensive to transport this stuff to places where it can be recycled, where we start to see the real challenges. So we don't want to remove marine debris from a beach in remote Cape York and just move it to a community that has no way to deal with it either. That's just creating another layer of problems. So we do try and recycle as much as we can. We have a partnership network where we take the PET and the other hard plastic remnants and items, and we put them in bulker bags and we clean them, because when we obviously are doing our data collection, we have an amazing opportunity to separate for recycling whatever we can. And we have these big 1-ton bulker bags that we fill with different types of items, and our network of partners trickle these out of Cape York, and then we find a partner to help us with the baling and the compressing, and then we need to find a recycling partner, and that partner changes as technology changes. At the moment, it's difficult to find someone in Australia that can take it because it is quite brittle. So, you know, we're hoping, like what Darren said, this investment in recycling enables materials to be recycled that, because of their quality, might not have been suitable for recycling in the past, whether that's mixing blends or new technologies. Unless, you know, I guess our big problem with these remote areas is that even if Australia had the best marine debris policies on the planet, which we don't, because we don't really have any, we're still going to have a marine debris problem because our neighbours aren't doing the right thing as well. And ocean currents will continue to bring this hopefully resource that we'll be looking at in the future to our shores. We'll be able to deal with it because it won't be a waste problem issue anymore. We'll have the technology to be able to use it as a resource.
And more than collecting plastics, you are also collecting data. So what is the value of this data?
The value of the data is that it can be used again and again and again. It can be used to identify those issues. And as I mentioned, you know, regionally we have very different things impacting different parts of Australia. And so you might say, well, let's do this solution. It may not work across the country. It may only work in certain areas. So the data enables to say, well, what should we be looking at in certain areas? And once we know that, we can start working on source reduction plans and strategies that to understand the loss of that particular item into the environment. We can bring the right stakeholders together, and then we can implement something that actually stops at the source. But we also need to make sure we nailed it. So the ongoing data collection post source reduction plan or strategy enables us to see whether we actually got it right, whether it still needs tweaking, what impact did it actually have, and creates a whole system of learnings that then that project can be replicated in other areas. And so one of the projects that we've been working on primarily up to this point in Victoria has been a plastics industry program called Operation Clean Sweep. So this program was developed by the US plastics industry in 1992 and still wasn't being rolled out in Australia. So that we know through the plastics industry and the transportation industries, we're losing a lot of this raw feedstock for the plastics industry through plastic resin pellets and flake. So this is basically happening because of bad housekeeping practices during handling. And so by bringing this to Australia and working with industry bodies like Chemistry Australia and APCO and some industry leaders who have all signed on to this program, we start to now see the reduction of plastic resin pellet loss because we've been able to figure out exactly at what point these items are getting lost into the environment, so then you can put in strategies that stop that and then continue to monitor the impact into the future.
Heidi, what is your one tweet length message you would like to give to our people of action?
If all we do is clean up, that's all we'll ever do.
And there we go. That was Ocean Innovators release number 2, celebrating 10 years to achieve United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Don't forget to press the bell button to subscribe, and we will see you next time.